Hello everyone, hopefully you're doing well today. You are here to get a little bit of help with the quadratic formula. So our first problem that we're going to do out of, I believe, two, is we're trying to solve 2x. Sorry about that, I should have done that earlier. 2x squared minus 10x equals negative 3. Now, there are a few different ways to solve quadratic equations. You can solve by factoring, if something is factorable. Sometimes you can use square roots, that's not very often though. But the one way that will always work, no matter what, is quadratic formula. And you see it hopefully on your page at the top of my screen at the right. The solutions are equal to the opposite of the b value plus or minus the square root of the b value squared minus 4 times the a value times the c value, all divided by twice the a value. Now what are we talking about with a, b, and c? We're talking about the stuff that deals with our standard form of a quadratic ax squared plus bx plus c. One thing you have to remember when solving with the quadratic formula is you do need to have this standard form set equal to 0 before you can start choosing what values you have for a, for b, and for c. For our problem, you do need to start with adding 3 to both sides to get everything collected on one side. We have 2x squared minus 10x plus 3 equals 0. Please note, this 3 does not go with that minus 10. It does not go with that 2. That 3 is a constant. It does not go with anything that has an x on it. But the negative 3 plus 3 on the right-hand side of the equation does equal 0, which is what we need before we can use quadratic formula. Now, what number are we going to plug in for a? That will be 2. What number are we going to plug in for b? That will be negative 10. And what number are we going to plug in for c? That will be positive 3. Please note, if you were to use negative 3 from the very beginning, you will get this a little bit incorrect. So at this point, if you're given the quadratic formula, it is all about you simplifying correctly. We're going to plug in negative 10 anywhere you do see a b. You're going to plug in 2 anywhere you do see an a. And then you are going to plug in a 3 for c. Now, doing this by hand is not too bad, but I know some of you will want to use the calculator. Here's what I suggest about simplifying with the calculator. The discriminant, aka the stuff underneath the square root, that's probably a good idea if you're a little hesitant about doing this by hand, to type in your calculator. Something I will mention, you do need to put parentheses around negative numbers when squaring them on the calculator. I guess I could just show you when I'm done typing in this the correct way. If you do forget those parentheses around the negative number, you will end up with a value that is different and is incorrect. So you have to be very careful about how you're typing. If you're going to use a calculator, you got to know how to use it right. Out in front here, that's something I hope you're comfortable doing. What is the opposite of negative 10? Down in the bottom here, what is 2 times 2? I'm hoping you're good with that being something you can also do in your head. So right now we've got it simplified to 10 plus or minus the square root of 76. Where'd that come from? Look up here on the left at the calculator. Negative 10 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3. And then the bottom is 4. Now, if you were to type this into a TI-84 calculator, folks, the thing is that it's going to give you a decimal. We don't want the decimal. We're going to be looking to give our answers in exact form. So before this, you've talked about simplifying radicals, so we're going to figure out how to write 10 plus square root of 76 over 4 and 10 minus square root of 76 over 4 in its most simplified forms. Now, we've talked about before simplifying the square root of 76. If you don't remember how to do this, maybe go back and do the practice / go watch the other video. The perfect square, that divides 76. Well, doesn't look like it is divisible by 49 or 36 or or 25. 76, is it divisible by 16? It is not. 76, is it divisible by 9? No, it is not. 76, is that divisible by 4? There it is, folks. Our perfect square that divides 76 is 4, and it's 4 times 19. The square root of 4 is 2, so we are able to rewrite the square root of 76 as 2 times the square root of 19. Now the very last thing we do, sorry about that, the last thing we do have to be on the lookout for is, are all of the terms in this fraction able to be simplified? Now if you really want to get into all of this, let's think about the fraction 2 plus 10 over 2. That top simplifies to 12, the bottom is 2. 12 divided by 2, this is equal to 6. So you got to be careful when you think about canceling things in fractions. Got to remember that we can rewrite the addition of fractions in two pieces where you just add the numerator. So really, this 4 in the bottom of this fraction over here, just like this 2 in this example on the right, is dividing the 10 and dividing the 2 square root of 19, just like the 2 is dividing the 2 and the 10. That's how we can think about that getting as 6. Versus over here, if we think about, can we divide the 10 and the 4, the 2 root 19 and the 4, all in the same way, you might think to yourself, well, everything's divisible by 2. So we can cancel a 2 out of 10, we can cancel a 2 from the 2 root 19, and we can cancel a 2 out of the 4. It's kind of like we're taking a common divisor of all three of these terms. So our final answers, 5 plus the square root of 19 divided by 2, and 5 minus the square root of 19 divided by 2. Please remember, some of the Math Excel questions don't let you put the plus or minus in, so you do have to write it as the two separate pieces. Keep that in mind, please. All right. We've got one more to work on. This is already in a form where it's set equal to 0, so we can just kind of get going here. As long as you can identify that A is 1 in this case, B is -4, C is -14, we're good to go. We do the opposite of B. Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times a. We can go to our calculators if we'd like to simplify the discriminant, remember, aka the thing underneath the square root. You can type it in exactly as you see it if you're anxious about that kind of thing. 72. At the very front here, opposite of -4, 2 times 1, I'm hoping again that is something you're comfortable not needing to type into your calculator. So here's where we're at right now. 4 plus or minus the square root of 72 over 2 is our solution to our problem, but we do want to simplify it. And one more time, we're not currently looking for just the decimal. Sometimes if we ask you to round, yeah, you can just go to your calculator, type it in, you can say 6.2. But we want the exact answer right now. So we do have to simplify the square root of 72. If you divide it by 2, you will see that one of the factors is 36. And 36 does have a nice square root, which is 6 root 2. So we can take our result from using quadratic formula and rewrite it like this. 4 plus or minus square root of 6 times, 4 plus or minus 6 times the square root of 2 divided by 2. Now we think to ourselves, can we divide each of these terms by that denominator? And everything is divisible by 2. So what would that look like? 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 root 2 divided by 2. Remember, we're only going to divide the stuff that's not underneath the radical. And the denominator simplifies to 1, so we don't even need to write it as a fraction. So our result, the number that we can plug in for x into this equation that will make 0 pop out, is There are two of them. 2 plus 3 square root of 2 and 2 minus. Ooh, I did not rotate this. My bad. 2 plus the 3 square root of 2 and 2 minus 3 times the square root of 2. So with that, I'm hoping that gives you a decent reminder about how to use quadratic formula. Good luck!